I'm Stephen Kendrick and I'm running for mayor of Augusta. My dad started Augusta Blueprint over 50 years ago. I grew up right there, working, learning, and loving this city. I've served this community my whole life, from modernizing the tax commissioner's office to building youth leadership programs and bringing jobs to Augusta. Augusta's at a crossroads. We need someone who can build, grow, unite, and lead. Keep an open mind. Let me earn your vote the same way my family earned its place here, by working for it. All in for Augusta, all in for you. I'm Stephen Kendrick. Let me earn your vote. Good evening. I'm Stephen Kendrick and I'm running for mayor of Augusta, Georgia. Tonight, I want to get straight into it, straight into the heart of this topic. I'm doing this so I can move directly to your questions that we've been receiving. We've had an overwhelming response to our previous live streams. I've heard from residents after each viewing that they didn't get their question in, so I think I owe it to all the people who've been tuning in to dedicate as much time as possible to their questions. Now, tonight, I have two major points to make. First, about housing, and then about the taxes and fees. Up first, housing, or should I say, lack of housing inventory. This problem is crippling Augusta and affecting our financial future. Now, I want to make sure everyone understands the connection, so I've gathered some numbers to prove it. Let's take a look. A regional housing study published in August of 2025, about 7 months ago, shows the region, and Augusta in particular, doing well in the job creation space. Led by Fort Gordon in manufacturing, Augusta is the heartbeat of the region's economic engine and the primary place for jobs. Problem is, we are really good at recruiting large manufacturers with exceptional jobs to Augusta. But we are awful in converting the workers that we've recruited to those jobs into residents here. The lack of strategy and vision and inability to convert these workers into residents rests primarily with the leadership you elected to make sure our city continues to grow and prosper. So why isn't the conversion of jobs to residents happening? Why don't people choose to live in Augusta? Well, some point to information quoted in the study as a reason. That is, and the quote was, the negative regional perceptions about Augusta's school system and safety. I don't necessarily agree. I'd like to point out an equally important reason from the study about why people don't move to Augusta, and it's actually what I primarily want to talk about today. That is Augusta's aging housing inventory, or put another way, there ain't enough decent places for people to live in Augusta, Georgia. Although this weakness in Augusta's housing inventory is identifiable and actionable, your leadership has failed to make it the priority it should be. When the regional housing study that we presented performed a survey and asked, what are the primary reasons people live where they do? A total of almost half the respondents indicated living near their job and having the type of housing that they needed available as the primary factors. Schools rank much lower. So as for the living near their job respondents, we get it. Augusta is positioned perfectly. Augusta gets consideration for housing and living here because we're where the jobs are. But for having the type of housing that they needed available, those respondents in this area, we fail miserably. We must fix this problem. We want and need people who come to Augusta to work to live here in Augusta too. So we must give them somewhere to live. Augustas want somewhere that has the amenities and curb appeal of our neighboring counties. Augustas need homes that fit into all price ranges. And right now, Augusta is losing that battle to our neighbors with no plan to fix it. Let's look at these alarming numbers. Since 2001, Columbia and Aiken counties have built over 35,000 more single-family homes than Augusta. Let me say that again. Since 2001, 25 years, Columbia and Aiken have built over 35,000 more single-family homes than Augusta, Georgia. That represents billions of dollars in additional tax base and discretionary funding for governments. Almost $8.8 billion to be exact. That's money to help our neighboring counties pay for their public safety, pay for their infrastructure, pay for their quality of life projects. When we in Augusta have fewer people to share the burden of funding government, that means you and I pay more and you and I lose services. That brings me to point 2 in our discussion today: taxes and fees. Absent the revenue that is collected from a community that is growing with businesses and homes, remember now, we have a 35,000 deficit in housing starts to our neighboring counties. Government must find a way to bring in more income, with cost to government continuing to rise. Unfortunately for Augusta, our leadership's answer seems to be increasing costs to taxpayers through taxes and fees. Simply speaking, we're paying too much for what we're getting. Taxes and fees are just too high. You're paying more in property taxes. You're paying more in sales taxes. You're paying more in special fees. And you're losing the things that you think government should be providing from the money that you've already paid. While some of you may have missed this, you'll notice a new or higher streetlight fee on your tax bill, both last September and this September, even if there aren't any lights on your street. You may have also missed the garbage fee increase, but service levels did not. Oh, and don't forget, recycling is no longer included in your service. So if you'd like to continue recycling, that's a new fee for you. And the approval and assessment of all these fees set by your mayor and commissioners.
$4 increase for trash service, a new $45 fee for people who have no street lights on their street, and as much as a $295 street light fee for previous exempt properties. Tasha Martin is now paying that new $45 street light fee on top of the new trash fee.
I know everything's going up, but this is insane. It hurts, especially when, we work hard for what we do have. And every year you just see the taxes go up.
Augusta residents, these problems of limited housing inventory and escalating taxes and fees have gotten out of control with no solution in sight. But I've been speaking on this issue for years with a solution. So listen, you build more homes, which brings growth, with more people, which brings more businesses, and we begin to share the tax burden. Augusta's not growing naturally. We're stagnant, so we have to create the conditions to make it grow. In case you missed it, we're no longer the second largest city in Georgia, and we're certainly not the fastest growing county or city in the CSRA. In fact, did you know by 2035, Columbia County is projected to be larger than Augusta, and in 2050, they're projected to have over 250,000 people. And guess what? Aiken County will be right on our heels.
Well, that's right, Richard. They are, and rightfully so. Columbia County is actually the fastest growing county here in the CSRA. That's because Columbia County has seen a 72% increase in population growth from 2000 to 2018. And they say the county will see a 194% increase in population in the year 2050.
These next numbers show Augusta's population over the last 25 years. As you can see, we really haven't grown in the last 3 years. We've added about 500 people a year. That's not really growth. Seems like I remember there being a campaign slogan for growth from my opponent last time. I hope we figured out by now that behind the words, there should be a plan. And you know what else? People are just frustrated.
Not taxpayers have bills to pay and new fees to cover.
Yeah, we are concerned, but what can we do about it? It's the good old boy system, and it is what it is.
Well, here's what you do about it. You elect new visionary leadership, someone who has a plan, someone who has a solution. Based on what I presented today, Augusta still has a tremendous opportunity. Housing development must be a part of Augusta's economic development strategy. Here's what I would do. First, build housing across all segments, affordable, workforce, premium. All are needed to create the type of community we want and need. Second, incentivize single-family housing developments through partnerships with local builders. There are tools in our toolbox right now that will dramatically help local builders who are interested in Augusta but don't choose us first because of financial opportunities elsewhere. We have to even that playing field like we do any other time we want to create a certain outcome. And lastly, use SPLOST to help create the conditions for growth by directing dollars to the communities identified for housing growth. We have available land in East and South Augusta that could be used to create planned communities that are aligned with the neighborhood and community vision. Simply put, that means bringing more people here to live and pay taxes so you and I don't have to pay so much. Folks, I've worked on this for years and I'm excited to get into the details. So let's get ready for questions. First, if I can get my team to get the monitor in place so I can see the questions. Let's see here. Remember, we're live here. Okay, I got a monitor here. I got it. All right, TJ, let's start with some questions that were submitted. Let's go. We got some. So we had questions come in advance. We asked for those and we got quite a few. So we're going to answer some of those. And then if we get any live, we'll do those as well. So here's the first one. Can you explain how the 35,000 homes in the other counties is a disadvantage for Augusta when we have all the businesses over here? Well, if you have 35,000 additional homes there, as described, you're creating a financial windfall for those counties. Let's remember how it works. Let's remember how our tax system works. You've got undeveloped land here in Richmond. You've got undeveloped land over here in Columbia. Over here in Columbia, people come, their houses being built, those $10,000 lots here become $350,000 homes. And so over time, taxes that are built based on the value coming into government, now over here, we've got several on this street that are adding more money to their coffers, all while these $10,000 lots over here are remaining undeveloped. So this county continues to grow and get more money, and this one stays stagnant. That, to me, is a disadvantage. When other counties get discretionary income, they're able to do some of the things we wish we could do. They're able to build quality of life things from the general fund and not have to use SPLOST for financing. They're able to do some things more rapidly because they've got more money coming in. We've got to do better. Next question. How are you going to avoid raising taxes if you say we aren't growing? Well, creating new revenue through home building was one of my ideas. That was the basis for this actual session today. I believe if we continue to incentivize builders and get them to build homes here, just like they build in other communities, we're going to be at a place where we don't have to raise taxes because the additional housing is going to create additional revenue. Remember, we've built the street. We've built the infrastructure. It's already there. But what we have is many lots on that street that aren't creating money for the tax base. I want to develop those lots. I want to develop those neighborhoods. I want to create new neighborhoods so that we can continue to get dollars based on this superior infrastructure we already have and not have to spread the cost of a growing government to everybody. Another question. I believe your focus should be on affordable housing as our communities poor are suffering. Why isn't that a priority for you? Well, first of all, affordable housing is a priority. It'll always be a priority. It's important that we find a way to make sure the least amongst us are able to have their version of the American dream. That is, living in and affording a small home for them and their families. But I believe all the levels are needed. Workforce housing is just as important. If our firefighters, policemen, nurses, and teachers don't have available workforce housing to live in, if they're forced to try to move up into the next rung of the ladder, then that creates problem with their discretionary income. We've got to have that type of housing for them to have a decent home in decent neighborhoods so that they can have the types of communities that they want to stay in, stabilize, and continue to build. So business will continue to want to build in those areas. But we also need premium homes. We need those types of homes that add extra to the plate, the types of homes that add a little more money because their value is higher so that we can continue to do those things we need to do to get ahead. All the levels are important, but I believe affordable is important as well. Another question. Does the process for adding additional taxes and fees come under the mayor since you're running for mayor? Well, of course, the process for adding any taxes and fees comes up under the mayor and commissioners. But I believe the mayor's office and the mayor, him or herself, presents a significant role in this process. They were elected by the entire city, and they're the only on that body or in that body that was. They have a voice and an influence over matters there that should not be ignored. When matters of raising taxes, when matters of costs, when matters of revenue come to the table, besides having a vote, there's an additional influence that I think is much more important. If the mayor, who is representative of everyone, has not done the research and not done the work to bring in information to help bring everybody to the same place, then we've lost an opportunity. It's extremely important that someone who speaks for everyone in this city have the facts right and bring them to the table. I believe their influence, while it may not be more, it should be impactful. And I'm one who wants to be there to do that for our citizens. Let's do another question. I saw you at a forum say that you want a forensic audit of the government. The commission has already rejected that request. Why continue to push? So at the forum on Monday, I guess we're talking about that forum. I didn't actually say I wanted a forensic audit. I said I wanted an operational audit. An operational audit helps with the efficiencies in government. An operational audit means that we can look at the entire organization that we have and make sure people are in the right places. And I believe the mayor, within his authority, can look to bring everyone together and say, we need to create more efficiencies in this government. We need to make sure that that happens. But I'm not against a forensic audit of key departments to make sure we're doing things right. A forensic audit looks at particular wrongdoing. And remember, there's $6.5 million that we can't seem to find. Nobody can seem to track. Sure, we did a cursory audit and we said, we looked at it and we determined that it was missing, but we couldn't quite track where it is. I'd be fully in support of doing an audit of that department, a forensic audit, to find out, was there any wrongdoing in that manner? So there's a difference between forensic and operational. I call for operational and I will continue to. And the question that was asked of me of the forum was, in my first 100 days, what were some of the things I do? And one of them was call for an operational audit. I will do that, but I also will support a forensic one of departments that we believe are in trouble. Next question. Do you support teaming up with the state and the feds to help develop and beautify our highways and the interstate sections that run through Augusta? Oh, absolutely. Not only with the feds and the state, but we need to do it as well. Our gateways into our community, you know, everybody says that, will only look great this week or next week, the Masters Week. We're going to fix all the gateways getting off I-20. We're going to clean them all up. But I believe there's opportunities to fix these gateways and come into what we have come to describe as the Garden City, so they look good all the time. And I'm in full support of those type of partnerships, not only with the state and federal government, but with private organizations too. Some may not know, but in our city right now, There are private organizations that partner with the city of Augusta to take care of those gateways coming into our city. There are people so prideful of the place we live that they use their own money along with city money together to make sure they look good. But can we find some more of those? I believe we can. And I'll be out there trying to find them so that we can continue to beautify this city and make it really the Garden City. Another question. If the solution is as simple as building more residential homes, why hasn't anyone addressed this issue before? Well, I believe the combination of experiences I have are different. And so because I was someone who was a part of the Land Bank Authority in helping to write a strategic plan and making sure that it was stable and doing the things that it was able to do from a state's function, I have a unique set of experiences that tell me what that organization can do. But also as chairman of Augusta's Economic Development Authority, I was able to see other things as well. I also served as Augusta's tax commissioner and was a part of the taxing process. And I was also a part of running a city agency, that is the tax commissioner's office. And so I understand government budgeting. I believe that I have a unique set of circumstances and a unique set of skills that allow me to do some things that others may not have seen. I believe it requires looking at all the different things you do well, having some ideas about things that could work for Augusta and proposing an idea. And that's just what I've done. Next question. How do you plan to address fixing the aging infrastructure that would be necessary to build new neighborhoods? So I'm hoping that the building of new neighborhoods will require new infrastructure. That is, taking that infrastructure into places where we are already building. But if you're talking about places in which we want to do rebuilds, it's going to take the use of SPLOST programmatically to fund those types of projects. Augusta is an old city, and in old cities, you have to understand that sometimes there's going to be issues underground. Some don't know, but there are wooden pipes that carry water in some parts of Augusta. They're not plastic anymore. They've been there for that long. We're going to have to find those dollars. But if we find ways to increase revenues, if we start to get neighborhoods moving in the right direction, if we start to incentivize these builders to say, hey, come over here, look at this piece of land, let's build together, we're going to be able to get, remember these properties we had over here in Richmond, they're all $10,000 lots that haven't been developed. We need to develop them. We need to make sure they turn from $10,000 lots to $250,000 homes, $350,000 homes to add to our coffers. We're going to be able to do better. Another question. I'm not so much into beautifying the city. I want grocery stores and places for senior citizens. Great question, Sharon, or great comment, Sharon. I believe we can do both. I believe the beautifying is important, but you're absolutely right. We need grocery stores. But as I've mentioned before in some of the other live streams, the grocers that you want, the Publix, the Krogers of the world, they don't just drop down in the city because the people say we want a grocer. They look at the neighborhoods, they look at the surrounding areas, and they say, what's going to make me go there when I know there are not enough people going to come in my door so that I can make money? But there's an answer. If you think about it, and you know, there's a new grocery store, a newer grocery store on Jimmy Dice Parkway, that Kroger. That Kroger didn't just show up. It required some government partnerships and incentives to help land that. As chairman of the Economic Development Authority during that process, we were responsible for helping to locate that Kroger right there. That's a growing area of town, and Kroger was agreeable to coming there. But we've got areas that aren't growing so fast. So remember, this is how it all works together. I told you that our city's not quite growing yet. You've got grocers who have an interest in Augusta, but we're trying to ask them to put them in places that they don't see the growth. They don't see the numbers. Government has to create the conditions to make it work so partnerships can exist. There's ways that we can incentivize Kroger's and Publix and other grocery stores to Augusta. But we've got to be all on the same page, and we've got to use our agencies that we have in place to do it. The Chamber of Commerce, the Development Authority, the Downtown Development Authority, the Land Bank. They've all got to work together on these projects, but somebody's got to bring them all to the table at the same time. Sure, they do meetings now. They get connected. But what's the vision and the plan for it all to work together? I believe I have that. I believe we can do that. And I believe Sharon's comment about bringing grocers here is possible. My mother lives downtown and still has to drive all the way up Washington Road to go to her grocer. I believe we can get one down there in East and further south more, and I'm going to be looking to make sure that happens. Next question. Would you support upgrading filtration systems at the Savannah River for water cleanliness and purification to make it nice and clean again the way it was in the early 20th century? Well, I'll admit right off that I am not the expert in the water filtration systems for cities. But I think it's a pretty easy question to say whether or not we would be supportive, and I as mayor be supportive of doing things that make Augustans more healthy and to give us clean water. I've made some comments before on what our water system or the problems that potentially our water systems have with our ecological system in our area. I believe we've got to do everything we can to make people safe and healthy. And if it requires more and better filtration systems, of course I'd be supportive of that. With the right information, with staff providing the information, with experts from the outside providing the information. That's what government does. It takes people who are experts in those arenas, nonprofits and people on the outside coming to government together, making the case so that government can make good decisions. I've always told the people who work for me, governance can't make good decisions without good information. When the information is brought forth and it can be supported, of course we do that. Another question. To build houses takes time. How do we fix the immediate shortage? That's a good one. But I believe we can do this fast if everybody gets on the same page. See, I've already started discussions with builders who have land in parts of town. I've already had discussions with private owners who have land in certain parts of town. And I'm interested in seeing if the types of relationships and partnerships can be made so that our city can do these things with these folks in targeted areas of our city to draw growth there so we can get the grocery store we just talked about. We need to make sure that people are in the places where we want these businesses to go. I've said this to people before, and it was probably worth saying again. When people are looking to bring businesses to town, and I own a small business downtown, if they're a destination place, they're going to go where people are and where people spend money. And right now, that explosive growth isn't happening in Augusta. It's happening in the places around us. So we have to sit and watch as those places continue to grow and we've stayed in that stagnant space. I tell you, Augusta, if our growth numbers change, our business fortunes change. If our growth numbers start to go up, if we build the homes and build the neighborhoods, the businesses will come here. We have an opportunity, and I want to be at the front of this parade to make it happen. Another question. Building in Richmond County is painful due to planning and zoning. We need new ordinances to speed up the process. So, planning and development, which is a part of the city of Augusta's, part of the places that you have to get permits and licenses, is, I don't believe, necessarily just the problem. What has to happen in a city that's looking to both protect citizens and create the types of neighborhoods we have that we want to live in, it requires them to put some things in place that sometimes builders and developers aren't happy with. But that speed is not always planning and development. Sometimes it's the other cursory organizations that come through planning and development that are actually the holdup. Sometimes it's check marks that need to be had in another department so that planning and development can go forth. I believe in everybody comes to the table, the builders, the planners, the fire department, the governance, the city officials, and we all work on a strategy to find out where the bottlenecks are. It all works. And I know people probably said, we've tried that before, but I haven't tried it before. And I believe if you elect me as your mayor, you'll see a difference there. People will get their things faster. People will get results faster. People will get responses faster. And we'll be able to create the type of city we want. I know builders sometimes get frustrated. I know people get frustrated with our city government. That operational audit that I mentioned earlier is vitally important. When you go in and you look and see if the right people are in the right places, everything works. Maybe our issue is that the planning and development department, which may have hypothetically 60 employees, really needs 70 to do this job. But we got this department over here that technology has helped, which has too many. It's an operational audit that has to happen in order for us to look at these departments to see. And when we do that and we get them staffed correctly and everybody's working in the same direction, I believe we'll see better results. Next question. How does the partnership with builders work? How do you choose the builders and what does the project look like? Pretty simply, builders or owners who have land would work with our city through our development authorities or land bank to have some of the project's pre-development work done early. See, part of the building process and part of what we require in Augusta is for builders to come in and when they're building a new neighborhood, put in streets, put in drains, put in sidewalks, put in trees, put in all of that underground infrastructure. And that pre-development cost sometimes lead builders to say, if I build this and the homes move slow, my cost to make sure that I remain profitable sometimes can get stuck with a home that sits there too long and no one's there to build. So what we do is potentially do a partnership that allows us to go in and build that infrastructure, that pre-development work first, so that builders' costs early on aren't so high. So they're willing to take a risk on Augusta and a home sitting there a little longer. That's possible. That's doable. That's gonna happen if Stephen Kendrick becomes mayor. Next question. Do you support privatization of city government as this seems to be the direction of the present administration? Oh, I absolutely don't support privatization. And I understand clearly what the question is asking. I've seen over the last few years, a lot of what we have in government being taken away and going outside, and they're being run by organizations that aren't based in Augusta. Take, for example, a housing and community development department now. It's not being run really by the city. We've hired a consultant to come in and help with that department. Oh, by the way, finance department right now, it's not being run by a director or assistant director. It's being run by a consultant as well to help get it together as I understand it. There's lots of ways to destabilize government, and I believe these are some of them. I believe there's a place for privatization in certain places, but I believe having experienced, good government workers adds something to government. It makes sure that institutional knowledge of how things work and need to work makes our government run better. Our government is in chaos right now. And while no one that's there and elected wants to say it, everyone is whispering it. The builders won't come out and say it out loud at a commission meeting. The people who do work with government don't want to be targeted, so they won't say it because there are people in our government, they're quite punitive against people who speak against government. But I'll tell you what I hear. The people are frustrated because nothing's working. Nothing is working. They can't get things. They can't get paid. I've got vendors telling me that they can't get paid, all because we're in disarray. That never happened in the tax commissioner's office for the 13 years I was there, or it doesn't happen that way today. People got what they paid for. They got it with a smile, and they got real customer service. We can do that in government still. Next question. I've heard you make a comment about planned communities. What does that mean? Yeah, so planned communities are types of communities that have the homes and the commercial businesses already planned to come together in a staged type of way. You create planned communities over many acres in which you have both commercial development, housing development, roadways, quality of life, all beginning to come together at the same time. I believe we can do that. I believe in South Augusta somewhere, we should have a town square type atmosphere, a place where you have housing and then other places for commercial development and other places for entertainment, all within the same general area. So people can walk out of their homes and walk down the street to the store, but then go to a park and have a good time. I've got some ideas about that. I think that can be done, but it can only be done if government takes the initiative to put their money where their mouth is and give the people what they're asking for. I believe it's possible. I believe planned communities work. And if you go Google it, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Next question. Why don't we just bring more restaurants and businesses to Augusta instead of trying to use the builders to build homes? Oh, didn't like my idea about builders building homes, but you wanted to bring restaurants and businesses. It's not a bad idea, bringing restaurants and businesses. Problem is, you're not going to get an Outback in South Augusta unless they see growth in residents. I've talked to these people before. I spent years recruiting and trying to get these folks to come to Augusta and come to South Augusta in particular. But they're not coming if they don't see some growth and activity. And so while I love the idea of bringing the restaurants, I don't own an Outback, and our government doesn't either. They don't own a T-Bones or an Olive Garden. So they can't just tell Olive Garden that's where you go. That's not government's role. Government's role is to create the conditions so that T-Bones or Outback or Olive Garden wants to go there. And if needed, incentivize it so that they will go there. That's what we haven't been doing. I believe one of the keys to the step, though, is by showing all of those particular restaurants, see what's going on over here, see that neighborhood here, see the growth going on here, so they'll want to go there. It all has to happen together. And I'm willing, again, to be the drum major to lead this parade. Got a couple more? If you become mayor, will you work with state officials to legalize certain nightlife aspects once allowed here, like nightclubs, gambling venues, open container policies, etc.? Interesting question as to what exactly Augusta would want to do as it relates to that certain nightlife. Right now, we've created different zones for different things so that they could happen. And I believe we can create an entertainment zone to do exactly what you're talking about. There's opportunities for us to do overlays and create these areas of town in which all of those types of things that young people are looking for and want to be in a vibrant city and have fun, we can do those. And it don't have to necessarily be right next to my neighborhood. But I don't believe we have to be the type of city that says we don't want anything. I believe we just have to put them in the right places. So I certainly believe in working with our state government, along with whatever we have to do locally to identify those places and help create them, because I want people to want to stay here. And I believe younger people will if we provide for them the types of things they want. And I believe this is some of it. A couple more, I believe, right? How do we find out more about how the city of Augusta runs? A lot of people are informed, but a lot of people aren't. One of the things that I'll commit to do is holding quarterly meetings about how government runs. Government 101 is what we'll call it. And I've already done the framework for a class like that. I think we can take our government piece by piece and introduce to people just what's going on. I do those types of seminars now through my consulting company, and I'd love to do those type of seminars about government for everyday people. I don't think we're going to have to do it in some kind of sophisticated way, but be able to bring people there and teach you about how government works. Many people don't know about our court system. Many people don't know about our public safety system or how engineering connects to planning, which connects to our fire department. All of those things work well together. And I'm willing, again, quarterly to come provide this information in a town hall type meeting and make sure citizens are informed. Cousin Colby, when you speak of growth in South Augusta, break down the growth, because South Augusta 30906 going to 301 hold majority of the residents in Augusta. I hear you, Cousin Colby. You're saying we've got most of the people, and I agree. But that's a big area you're talking about. And when you're talking about growth for restaurants, they like density. They like to see the people living near the restaurant. And so when they're looking for density, and one other thing, looking for incomes, I'll agree, South of Gordon Highway has most of the people. But we've got to show them that we're building neighborhoods, creating density, creating traffic patterns. They want people driving by their stores. See, there's a science to building a grocery store, something I learned in recruiting this Kroger. They don't just go and slap a Kroger somewhere. They look at things like where you're going to be driving from, if you're going to make a right-hand turn into the Kroger on your way home from work, and if you can't, that makes the possible site not as attractive. Think about this for a second. They want to make sure when you're driving that you don't have to cut across traffic to turn into a grocer. That makes a site less desirable than if you're going home, you just take a right. All of that kind of science that goes into it, along with how many people, how much they make, where they live, all of it matters. Did you know they have ways in which they look at grocery store clusters to make sure that people are there? Let me give you an example. The corner of Washington Road and Alexander Drive, you notice there's a Kroger, and there's a Publix, and there's an Aldi, and if you go a half a mile down the street, there's a Costco. They've got information, and they track it through those little things called cell phones we have, that shows that when you leave that Kroger, where you go, and when you leave that Aldi, where you go, and when you leave the Publix, where you go. And they watch those traffic patterns. Those traffic patterns tell them how to put stores and where to put them. I've seen this information. It's fascinating what they do to go to figure out where to put one. But when you know that information, and because we understand it, we've got to create the types of communities that will allow us to put them there. I know it's tied to where people live and how much they make and having high density. And we're going to work on together with some of these people who actually go out and recruit grocers for us, and we're going to put together plans to get what we need there. Restaurants want to know where you go when you leave them, where you were before you got to them. Believe it or not, that cell phone you had tells them a lot. And because they track where you are, they know all this information. We're going to use that to our advantage. We're going to make sure we capitalize on that. And we're going to make sure we bring those things to not just South Augusta, but better stuff to West and East as well. Couple more. Will you revamp the Regency Mall area? You got to talk about Regency Mall again. Of course, I want to revamp the Regency Mall area. It was a primary focus for me last time. But I'll tell you, not getting the position of mayor reduces your ability to make things happen. You guys know how this works. You can't just be a regular old person and get everybody on the phone. The types of people you need to make super projects happen. Sometimes it takes the influence and position to make those things happen. And last time I didn't get there. But I'm committed to trying to find, not only for Regency Mall, Diamond Lakes, the Augusta Corporate Park, all of those potential centers need to be revamped and redeveloped. Regency Mall, we're starting to work. But I did a live stream on this, and it's available on my page, on my YouTube channel. You can go and see what really happened with Regency Mall. It wasn't that we weren't still trying. It's just that everybody doesn't want it to happen. So I'm committed to it. I'm going to stay committed to it. I can't promise you I'll deliver that tomorrow, but I promise you I'm going to keep trying to work for it so Augusta can get what it deserves. All right. I had another one. What ideas can be done to help low-income families to receive affordable housing who has issues with credit? You know, I'm not the expert on this. There are agencies out there that do this. The EOA is one. The United Way is another. They're better experts at helping people who are in these issues, who have these problems. But here's something how government affects that. This is interesting. When we choose to cut out supporting the NGOs, those non-governmental institutions that we help support, some of those nonprofits, we kind of affect their ability to help people that you're talking about. See, those organizations, while they do have their own budgets and they're going to survive, we sometimes provide extra support for them because the work they do helps us in Augusta and helps our citizens. I want to make sure those nonprofits stay well funded so they can provide that super experience. We don't have that in government, but we have the ability to help the nonprofits who do. Couple more. Last question, they say. Why can't we just stay the same size and thrive? I like Augusta and its small charm, and additional growth brings additional problems. Additional growth brings additional problems. Well, I don't agree. I think Augusta needs to grow. I don't want us to stay the same size. I want us to have smart growth to get this side over here in Augusta, developing this land so that we can get more tax dollars into our government's coffers so we can do the things we need to do. I don't think we can stay 200,000 people and the cost of government continue to go up without me having to pay more and you having to pay more. We're going to have to bring more businesses and people to our city in order to make it grow to fund our government. And we can do that. There's lots of land in Augusta. We don't have to be all on top of one another, but we can do better than what we're doing. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We're excited to continue to bring this type of information to you. Stay tuned for information on our next topic. I'm going to end by saying I'm Stephen Kendrick, and I'm running to be mayor of Augusta. Let's build, grow, unite, and lead our city to be exactly what we want it to be. Good night. Good night, Carter, my grandson. You need to go to bed. You guys go put your grandsons and daughters to bed as well. Hope to see you next time.